Hey, welcome back to the Peak Property Performance Podcast. It's me, your host, Drew Hall, along with co host Bill Douglas. Bill, welcome.
Hey, glad to be back. Today we have Danielle Sprouls, a commercial real estate attorney turned executive coach, author, and speaker. Danielle is a former litigation attorney turned commercial real estate insider who spent more than 2 decades in the title insurance industry. At the heart of billions in transactions and relationships that power commercial real estate. She's now the founder of Unscripted Pivots and the author of WTF, which made me smile, right? Women that flourish. Known for helping professionals turn their
Absolutely.
curveballs into catalysts. So, in today's episode, we'll talk about how AI and automation are reshaping the real estate world and how bold leaders can master the human side of performance, keeping their teams focused, flexible, and fearless when everything else around them is evolving. So, Danielle, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Thank you. So glad to be here. We finally landed this plane. Truth be told, I missed our first episode, guys. I had misjudged the time, but here we are, and thank you for your perseverance in landing this episode and conversation with me. So, by way of background, I want to be clear. Yes, I went to law school. I graduated. I passed the bar on the first time, yay! And I practiced for a bit. I never practiced in commercial real estate, though. What I was doing was I was really a glorified research assistant and prepared these senior partners for trial. So I was really astute at doing all the research and writing the briefs and things like that, and doing motions and depositions. So it was in litigation, and then take the hiatus to be a full-time mom to four. When I reemerged in 2001, when my youngest one was about maybe coming up on two, I was recruited by an attorney that had a commercial real estate title insurance firm. And so when he offered me a job in a casual conversation at a party where I was saying, I need to get back to the business world, this lawyer said, "I'll hire you." And I'm like, "Good, a lawyer's hiring me. I want to go back to practicing law." And lo and behold, what I did was I ended up pivoting into insurance, which I thought would be a brief stint. Like, okay, let me just get my feet wet. Let me get back into a business clothes, ditch the yogurt, the sweatshirts with spit up on them and whatnot. And I ended up loving it. I fell into the commercial real estate world then, and was shortly thereafter recruited to New York within 6 months, and then it just took off. And so, for that reason, I have stayed in an industry that I have known to grow and love, and today I still serve this community, but what it looks like is in executive coaching and speaking opportunities, putting out my framework, starting with the WTF. And WTF
Oh,
as a framework, just like OpticWise has a framework.
yeah.
Right before this, we talked about this for a second because you have that 5-point touch system, all your C's: clarify, connect, collect, coordinate, control. And what I put forth is also 5, and it's an acronym for PIVOT, PIVOT. Pause, identify, vet, outreach, test. So we're very systematic in what we're offering the commercial real estate community. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, welcome again, Danielle. All right, so let's we all know, we all see it. AI and automation are transforming how we manage assets. No question about it. But how do leaders keep their people adaptable, agile, and emotionally invested during this great change?
Well, you know what? Most of the resistance, I think, is about the fear of the unknown. I mean, AI has just come in and taken over in really honestly magnificent ways. But because it's new and because it's not completely tested and, with, let's say, the people, we need strong leaders that can educate and build that foundational trust. So you're building a digital infrastructure. What I'm saying is that we have to examine closely the human infrastructure, because if you don't do that, it won't be well implemented into the systems. People have to understand, but I think trust is at the foundation. There has to be, T for test. You test your employees, help them understand the different ways that what you're offering to your owners in the commercial real estate space actually translates into their excitement, right? Because we really have to get people to sign on and adopt what it is that you're offering in order for it to excel. And it really starts with leadership. It starts with the C-suite.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so, I mean, you mentioned like your acronym or acrostic for pivot that you use for
Mhm.
those 5 points. Maybe it's something within there, or maybe it's something different. Is there something that you see, like something that's most common that keeps teams from experiencing that transition quicker than they otherwise could?
Well, when we're going to pivot, it doesn't mean that there's a change in vision. There's just usually a change in strategy. A pivot is an invitation when you have new information. That's where the whole WTF thing started, right? When we get these curveballs and we're saying WTF, right? And what I put forward is like, let's redefine what WTF is, or at least how it's experienced. So you got WTF, wisdom through failure. When we're going to pivot or we're going to do something or we're going to adopt AI, or building owners are going to take on your systems and whatnot, we have to first, what do we have to do? We have to P in the pivot. We have to pause. Okay, let's gain some clarity, because sometimes what's loud and new is not the best choice. There's always a pause that is necessary in the beginning. A lot of us, I'm going to say myself included on any given day, don't want to pause. We want to embrace. And when something looks flashy and exciting, we want to get on board. And that's not always necessarily the best choice. You have to be cognizant as to why you're buying, maybe your system or something else. And so it starts with the pause.
Well, sometimes they'll pause long enough to ignore it and not even embrace it. So,
well, that's
and
next.
you're saying pause and actually take a
Be
relook
mindful.
at it rather than
Mhm.
be scared of the new or ignore the new or
Never, don't, yeah. Bill, I mean, I constantly put forward, the pause isn't about paralysis. It's about gaining clarity so that you can make that next move, right? It's
okay.
to take stock into what is your next direction. The P stands for pause. It does not stand for paralysis. Nobody wants to do that. And it doesn't stand for procrastination either.
But
No.
we do see a lot of paralysis analysis, and
Mhm.
especially in the larger firms when it gets to asset management. A lot of times it just dies in analysis. It being anything new, not just what we're doing,
Yeah.
but anything new. So the commercial real estate it operates well, but it operates well in hindsight, not in foresight, in our opinion.
The commercial real
So
estate community is it's just wild, right? Either they're like taking too long or they're moving too fast. I mean, rarely do you see like a complete balance in their activity. I mean, I'm just
Mm.
talking about being exposed to it for 30 years. And, sure, I was in commercial, title insurance. Like, what is that? I'll tell you what that is. That's at the forefront of everything that's going on. Now, it doesn't go into property management questions. And I know that you're dealing with owners that would be adopting your systems and integrating it into their work. That's gonna raise their, NOI, and it's going to, give them other ways to capture, like, revenue generating opportunity that otherwise would go to a third party, right? But in my career, during the course of those couple of decades, what I got to see is, like, just the psychological safety that was necessary from the leaders, as, like, the sellers out there with his portfolio of commercial real estate across the country. And then you have like the buyers, and also the lenders are coming in, and the attorneys. So I got to see the evolution of the transactional process, which, still fascinates me and I enjoy it. But today, instead of being in transactional mode, I'm in transformation mode. I like to dig deep and help the leaders that are making those decisions and going through those processes to grow and excel the best way they can.
I hear a lot of the owners talk about risk, the risk averse, which I understand, right?
Mhm.
Because they have fiduciary responsibilities to their investors, whether they be
Yeah.
lenders or actual limited partners, and they deal with regulation all the time. So
Yes.
here comes this, AI, big hot topic. You can optimize your performance. They're hearing it all the
Mhm.
time. But how do you suggest they pivot their mindset when the data starts pointing in uncomfortable directions? Like maybe they're learning things they didn't want to learn.
Mhm.
How would you coach them on that?
Well, again, it goes down to trust, right? So, what really exists? Where are you getting it from? So, the things that OpticWise is probably offering, and I know you're not specifically talking about that. When I think about the adoption of anything new that's foreign, the unknown, and that's how fear starts to creep in. That's why the pivot process is so important. So, pause, do your research. Who else is using this? How valid would all of whatever it is, not just your product per se, just in general.
Mm,
And then I identify the opportunities that are within this change, because oftentimes any kind of change or disruption or anything new and that's foreign creates a sense of fear because it's not really fully understood. So there's always going to be inherent in any kind of pivot, some sort of risk, any kind of adoption of AI technology, a little bit of a risk, because this is a very dynamic sector, as you know. I mean, AI is changing all the time. And I do think that you have to vet your options, look at what's available.
It
And
is
then
changing all the time. I mean, just look at this week. Claude announced something, and then OpenAI came out and said, "Oh yeah, we got that too." Last week it was Apple making some announcement.
Right.
Gemini will be the next one. I mean, the AI itself is going faster than anybody can keep track of, let alone the providers. Right.
no
Okay. I
doubt.
mean, have you seen examples of, or actually, can you share some examples where data-driven insights led to real culture shifts within an organization? And I don't mean technology. Maybe it was in title insurance. Maybe it was in other insurance. Maybe it was in operations. Maybe it was in outbound, market facing, not just operational improvements. Have you seen culture shifts from data?
Absolutely. You mean the data that's coming from AI in the last maybe 5 years, or are you just talking about in general? I mean,
Yeah,
data transfers.
the changes in the availability of data, like that is different now than it was 5 years ago. Whether it's from AI or
Mhm.
not, we are all looking for more data. What we do with it is a whole different question. AI is after that. If you don't have the data, AI can't help you.
Yeah.
Absolutely, if you don't have the data. But then here's the thing, it's not just about having the numbers because the numbers don't lie, but it's the interpretation of that information. It's the implementation of that information because unless you're going if you're not going to implement it, what good is that? So really where I come in, and I don't coach people on AI, I do coach people walking through discomfort, and AI is a very uncomfortable thing for,
Mhm.
many of us because it is moving so fast because it comes from so many sources. The
Well, that's why
information.
we wanted you on the show to talk about this right here, Danielle.
Yes, and so then it becomes about psychological safety, and what are the leaders? How astute are the leaders that are, getting their teams gathered on whatever it is that they want to discuss? Maybe it's around AI. This has to be where they're educated and they know how to communicate the importance and the advantages associated with those systems, associated with that data. Otherwise, it can't be adopted, it can't be embraced, and it will not be implemented. So it all starts with whoever's leading the teams, and it goes down to communication. I think that everything goes down to communication and how well they can execute that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. My gosh. I mean, I almost feel like you answered the question that I had for you here about owners and operators, what they can actually do to
Mhm,
encourage or to build or just make it natural almost for their people to engage in that mental or, like you said, human infrastructure, but the mental
mhm,
infrastructure and the resilience across their team. So I hear you saying that communication, the importance and the advantages of doing it. And I mean, conversely, like the drawbacks of not doing it. It sounds
Oh, it's absolutely critical. It's absolutely critical, but it starts with the leadership team being on board and then being well informed. Because
mhm.
without that information, there will be no implementation. And, it's like anything else, describe analogies so that somebody could kind of relatably understand what it is you're saying. Because a lot of the tech that's happening is foreign, it is new. And it almost seems like we're going back to, I don't know, the Jetsons. Does anybody here remember the Jetsons?
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
It's
yes,
not on
love it.
TV, so if
I have,
you're
I have a
yeah.
Roomba at home, and I named her Rosie.
That's
I'm sure everybody named their
you
Roomba
know,
Rosie, but
it's like, is this real? Is this a but, honestly, you have to ask yourself whenever you're uncomfortable with something conceptually, right? Think about all that exists that, like listen, in any given town, more of a city-centric situation, but, there are cars driving themselves. People are now getting into historically what were cabs with people driving, asking where you're gonna go, and there's nobody in the front seat, okay? We thought Tesla was, like, so dynamic when it was like, "Oh, wow, this car can kinda drive itself, but you have to kinda touch it and you have to be in it." Now you don't even have to be in it.
Right.
That's like now it's just about the passenger. Like nothing, just let's celebrate all the advancements that have been made in technology, and AI now is the boost, as the real assist in that technology.
Mhm.
When we take out the human error, and I'm not gonna say that AI is not fallible, I think all things are because there's humans that are actually creating this and implementing it. So There's always room
Yeah.
for error and there's always room for improvement, but it is downright fascinating what we have at our fingertips in 2025, and you can only imagine what is coming. So, with the adoption and the integration of systems like the two of you are putting out, I mean, this is huge, but it's introducing a mindset shift. And who's going to capture this? Who's going to control this? Who's going to assist and serve? I mean, anytime you come looking at it from a different direction, people are going to have to say, wait, because now you're challenging beliefs that have been long standing, things that are understood. How could that be? Or why should it change? So there's always a little bit of job around that, but it comes back to communication. And I love your 5-step thing. Clarify, connect, collect, coordinate, control. That C system is gold. It's absolutely
Mm,
gold.
yeah. Yeah, we've come in contact with other folks too out there, conferences or whatnot, where a lot of that crosses over. So much of it crosses over. It's a
Mhm.
common theme for sure.
It's nice to hear somebody else use 5 Cs. Like, I'll probably borrow your pivot structure as well. I Thank you very much.
You have to borrow my WTF structure, never mind pivot, because anything I'll tell you well, my all of my chapters are WTF, and so the
Mhm.
first one is WTF, what's the framework? And that's what you're putting forth, okay? What's the framework? What is it that we can do for the
Love that
children?
winning through failure. I mean, I've had several
Right.
failures in business, right? Thankfully, I've had more wins than losses, but I've had some monumental failures in life that made me who I am
Yeah,
now.
but what
Like, it never brought you down. It was a bump in the road. Being paralyzed is not
but
that big of a deal.
it's not a big deal at all. In fact, if you're not failing, you're not growing. And all failure is another F word. It's feedback. Failure is just feedback. And, I'm on a mission. I have a whole chapter dedicated to that to let people know that they shouldn't fear failure. Failure is the process, failure is the stretch. And when we talk about AI and implementing these new systems, there is going to be stumbles. You stumble before you soar. There are no shortcuts, and anybody looking for one is going to be sorely mistaken that they're going to find success, not sustainable success, because it's not out there. You have to fail and fail often, fail early.
Engaging with my adult sons, I teach them that all the
Yeah,
time. A failure in life doesn't mean you are a failure. It means that
that's
that didn't work. So what did you learn from it? What can you do better
right.
next time? Like,
Yeah,
because I
stumble
have
up.
failed doesn't mean I am a failure. So I just choose never to believe that.
Yes, they're
Yeah,
two.
Yeah, do that in business too, because there's so much experimentation going on with technology in general, but specifically AI. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
people ask us all the time, what's the value of the data? And the answer, honestly, is I don't know how big it is. It's large, but I don't know
Mhm.
how big because we don't even have your data yet. You don't have your data yet. How are you going to know until you have it?
But
Right?
but but just ownership of it. What you're both putting forth is recapturing ownership. Who doesn't want to own their data, their buildings data?
yeah,
I mean,
right.
Right.
think about it. It wasn't done previously or it's not widespread. So really you have a challenge ahead of you, which I know that you're embracing wholeheartedly, and that's to educate. Because at the end of the day, this is all about educating
Well,
people
that's what the
on what's
podcast
going
is
on.
and the book
Yeah.
is. It's just education. We're actually
Yeah.
giving away
Yeah.
how to do it too and what to do
Yeah.
it. Not that we don't have to do it for you. You can do it yourself.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
But so from your legal and advisory lens, in your years of commercial real estate, how does ownership of that data translate into asset value? We like asking this question because we get all kinds of answers from different angles, whether it's financial, legal, insurance, or operations. So how would you answer that?
So, to be clear, are you asking me how does ownership of the data that you provide through your business, how do I think that that would be
How would
useful?
owning like a building or a portfolio of buildings, actually owning the data that their buildings are generating, how would that translate into asset value? As
Well, I
opposed
think
to
that
5 years ago where they just operated
Mhm.
based on when they got the utility bill rather than
Yeah. Okay. So then it becomes something that used to be an expense, a line item, something that cost you something, to something that actually can be working for you. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't own something that doesn't want information on what they own. Right. So,
That's a good point.
I mean, let's take it down to a personal life, family. I want to know as much about my kids as possible. I don't want just their teachers educating them and I have no clue as to what they're learning. So recapturing that is very empowering. I think it's extremely important. So I love what you're putting out there. I mean, that doesn't necessarily touch my career, but it touches the people that I coach. The majority of the people that I do coach tend to be in commercial real estate because that's been my universe for a very long time. And it's still where I network freely. Those are the conferences I go to. That's the language I understand. That's the mindset and the people and the rhythm that I have been holding arms with for, a few decades. So, but it's about taking back your power, right? I teach empowerment. I explain to people that I coach and to teams within companies how they can renegotiate their mindset so that they can see how much control they actually have once they gain a sense of clarity. And what you're doing is you're literally giving back the power to those building owners by saying, this is your asset. This is not your line item. So it's, effectively that raises revenue generating thing. For me, it raises mindset generating, and everything is about not just about mindset, but about the culture, about the understanding of what's going on. And it all begins with the leadership, right? It all begins like take back control. And that's what you're offering building owners through your systems is to take back control that they used to actually freely giving away and see how useful that data can be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I like that question that you said, like, what is it amongst the things that you own that you don't want to know about? Right?
Yeah.
It's you own it for a reason. And the
Yes.
more information you have about it, the better you can make a decision as to whether you should continue to own the thing. So,
Yes.
yeah, it all boils
Absolutely.
down to that data. Very powerful.
Absolutely. And
All right.
it's yeah.
Oh, sorry, Danielle.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. I was gonna say it all starts with your first C, which is clarify. Right. Clarity is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about
Okay.
no, that's the known unknown. The unknown unknown wouldn't give you a pivot point, for instance. But if you don't know what you don't know, then you're more at risk. But you also can't make a decision to solve it. At least if
Right.
you know what you don't know, it's a whole different strategy.
Well, okay, I'm gonna challenge that. I don't know if I understood you correctly, but this is what I'm gonna say. I think what everything I wake up today and I just say, I know nothing. And then sure, I know a lot. I'll have diplomas, on my wall that will tell you that I'm learned. The truth is, I know there's more to know. And what I want to make sure, even when I come into coaching teams and whatnot, is that I'm not making any assumptions. So yes, I know
Right.
what I know, but I never want that to cloud my understanding or the expansion of my mindset and brain because and this is so important when it comes to AI and whatnot because if I come in with preconceived ideas, I won't have the capability of understanding the nuances and the growth and the expansion that is delivered like weekly in AI, right? So I'm comfortable with what I don't know. I'm always seeking to know more. I think that curiosity is a superpower.
Yeah.
And when you embrace it as such, fear gets a little bit diminished because you start to realize that this is good. I want to understand what's happening. But what I do understand is that what I understand today may not be. It's not that it's gonna change, it's gonna be bigger tomorrow. So I'm totally comfortable with knowing that I'm
Yeah.
a
Well,
little
we
bit
have a
delayed.
we have a core value
Yeah.
here at OpticWise to
Yeah.
always be learning so you can find a better way.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
We might accept the status quo. There's always a better way.
No. But today we act on the information that we have,
Right.
right? So that doesn't mean just sit around and wait for the next 12 hours.
And we're
You
definitely saying the
the
same.
information. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, we're besties and we just met.
No, it's interesting because, like, a real quick note on that movement from unknown
Yeah.
to known unknown. I think if I could say something, that's the simplest form of transitioning from that state 1 to state 2, it would be this. Like, to a building owner, do you have the ability to control your lights based on all these different environmental conditions? I mean, maybe there's 20 different conditions,
Yeah.
and they say, I'm not sure." And then you take a walk around the building, and you go up to floor 7, closet J, and you open the door and there's something hanging on the wall that looks like it
Mm.
probably does that, but it may not even be connected. So I would say that that's one of many, many examples of going from an unknown, I don't even know if I can, to it looks like I can, and now I know that I don't know what that
Yes.
thing can do.
Yes.
So
That's true.
just to bring a little bit of tangibility into the commercial real estate, the physical infrastructure of it all. So it's kinda it converges, I think, with what we're saying, though, because it's a quest for, realizing that you don't know everything for sure, but there's gold nuggets all over the place if you just kinda keep your mind open and your eyes open.
There's always and you know what? It's really important that, companies appoint fearless leaders, and I don't mean just one because, when we talk about the implementation of AI or how it's utilized and whatnot, there's a lot of I don't wanna say older because I don't wanna date anybody, okay? So it's more of a mindset thing than it's an age thing. And they don't want to know because they can't even wrap their head around it. So that can act as a barrier. So it's so important for companies to recognize that even if you've got like, the top person, guy or girl, whatever, woman or man, in place, if they are resistant to change, they're not the ones that should be communicating and educating the teams. I'm not saying to be shown the door necessarily, but make sure that you have the right touch people, the right touch points so that they're not like gates that are blocking all of this information, all of this opportunity, because, that really becomes a hindrance when we're like, "Well, we didn't do it like that," or they don't want to understand because they're overwhelmed, and, one of the things that I consistently see, and I understand why, is that people at the top that are making these decisions, maybe even the ones buying your product, I mean, hopefully they've got the right tech people in place that could appreciate and understand, but at the end of the day, it's like they don't wanna look stupid. So, sometimes people making these decisions aren't learned in that and it's not familiar because it is pretty much brand new, all this AI stuff. Because it's what, 5 years? I mean, really, I mean, it's only maybe in the last 2.5 where people are implementing it, like regular people are implementing all this stuff, that they're not resistant to it because they don't wanna feel stupid. Because
Yep.
whenever you're learning something new, I don't care how brilliant you are in whatever factor you are in life, when you're learning something new, you're back to a beginner. And that is not necessarily comfortable.
Mhm.
It's just not because you don't understand. So as long as you stay curious, which is a core value in your company, it's a core value in what I coach on, you will be fine. You
Yeah.
know, don't worry about what you don't know. Just seek it out and have a hunger to understand.
Yeah.
Hunger to understand.
And I think it's still true. I'm not up to date on brain science, but I will tell you that in doing some leadership classes in my days at IBM, that brain
Mhm.
science showed that it's just an absolute fact as we age, that it's something that we must like exercise against is that natural tendency to kind of close in a little bit and be a
Yeah.
little bit more fearful of those unknowns.
Well,
So,
it's like clinging to safety almost. And
mhm.
you know what? I'm doing the opposite because 'cause I'm not all that young. I mean, according to the calendar. But in life, I'm like 5 years old. So I am more playful and more adventurous. I mean, I
Which
just jumped out of I'm
WTF
playing with my kids
chapter
for
is that?
God's sakes. I'm like, "Let's go."
Then yeah,
But I
which
do
WTF chapter is that?
For sure.
you know what it is? It's WTF, work toward fulfillment.
Yeah.
I move towards fulfillment with great intention on a daily basis, both in my work life and in my personal life. And I no longer put the chains on myself. So the minute that I feel like I want to do something, but I'm uncomfortable because it's new and I'm stretching or am I going to be good at it? I was like, oh no. I honor my inner voice today in a way that I never did early on. And I don't look for permission outside of myself. If it's something I should be doing, I give myself permission, and I used to look to you and you and you, and I wanted everybody to tell me it was okay, and even then, I may or may not do it, and today, I grant her permission, and we're just going all over. It's absolutely phenomenal, and it's WTF, work toward fulfillment.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, this is great. This is great. So, Danielle, we're going to shift to something we call the extra floor. So, the way we close out all of our podcasts, we just fire off. There's going to be 5 quick questions, just gut level responses, whatever comes to your mind. So, question number one: what's a book or a podcast that has shaped how you think?
Oh gosh, okay, real fast, Mel Robbins, the high five habit.
Mhm.
Do you wanna know
Yep.
why? Okay, I read
Please.
yeah, I read it really quick. Everything's about timing in life, and I read her book maybe 6 years ago at a time where I think I needed to give myself a little bit more, of a congratulatory note, and this silly little book by Mel Robbins was telling you that you should take a Post-it note, stick it on your mirror every morning, and give yourself a high five and, like, say you did great, and I thought, "This is the stupidest thing ever," and what I learned in that moment and in that practice is that doing silly things actually can stick. They kinda shift your brainwaves,
Mm.
and it made me laugh, and I think that at the core of everything is that you have to have some joy and levity and some laughter. I am very, very big on laughter, and so that book at that time is what I needed, and so that's the answer to that question.
That's great. Oh my gosh. That's great.
Well, at the risk of being redundant, given your answer, what's the best piece of career or life advice you've ever received?
That nobody should stop me if there's something that I wanna do. I remember a mentor years ago when I came into New York and I started doing commercial real estate, he told me, "Trust your intuitive self." And I did that to some degree, and that's how I became really successful, but I didn't full blown do that until recently. And, I do think that pain is a catalyst to change, and there were certain things in my life that had to happen that kind of created a rock bottom for me, and then in that discomfort, you have a choice. You can either grow or you can die, and I chose to
Mhm.
grow. I will always choose a person, a friend, or think that if I saw that they went through something hard, because I think that that's the stuff that's character building. It's so I choose my friends, I choose the people I hire pretty much based on how much they have struggled and got to the other side. If you're still on the
Yeah.
struggle bus, well, I'll send you some flowers and we'll talk and I'll be there for you, but I'm not gonna hire you. But if you got off that bus, oh, you're a warrior. I love to be surrounded by warriors, and I claim
That's
to be one as well.
that's great. What's a small daily habit or ritual that makes a big difference for you?
Gratitude lists and prayer every day. So I am more spiritual than I am religious. I was raised Catholic, from the get go, nuns and priests teaching me. I went to Catholic nursery school. I went to Catholic college, and even went to Seton Hall for law school. But the power of prayer is in my life huge. And God he continues to infiltrate my life on every single level. And that is who I consult with all
Amen.
the time.
Nice.
So that's what I would tell you about that.
Amen. That's awesome.
What's something you've learned to appreciate more with time?
The power of silence. Yeah. Taking a beat and listening. I mean, as you can see, I talk. I'm from Jersey. I'm type A. I'm a Leo. I can talk a lot. The power of silence, not only in the opportunities I get to listen, but also when there's like a nothingness going on. And I have created on my calendar, and it's not that it's systematically put there, but what I'll call white space. I make sure that I on a daily basis, we'll have it where there's nothing happening, no TV, no cell phone. I don't sometimes it's 3 minutes, sometimes it's 30, but just the power of silence. And what comes in that and that can be really achieved too for most people through meditative practices, which I used to do consistently with transcendental meditation years ago. I don't do it all the time, but that was another life-changing, moment where I thought, "I am not gonna sit still for 20 minutes a day, like, this is insane," or I was incapable. What I learned is when you sit in silence or when you can appreciate the power of silence, that you will regain clarity and control so much faster. And anytime you dedicate, whether it's 3 minutes, 3 hours, or 30 minutes, it doesn't matter. You will grease the wheels of your life. So the power of silence would be the answer.
Yeah. All right, last one, number 5. When you're not working, what do you love to do that recharges you?
Spend time with my kids. I have 4 kids or my husband or my dogs. I am so blessed with an abundance of family and love. And yes, that's what you'll find me doing. I mean, hobby-wise, golfing, I'm not very good. I am married to a golf pro. He teaches people how to golf. I just kinda laugh through his lessons. Love him to pieces. But yeah, that's what I love to do, spend time with family. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Danielle, tell our listeners how they can contact you if they're interested.
So the best way to find me is to go to my website, unscriptedpivots.com. It's spelled just the way it sounds. And from there you can find out about, the WTF book. You can find out, I'm on Instagram. I'm regularly on X. They also, Twitter. Back in the day it was called Twitter. Do a lot on there on spaces and whatnot. And, all the things, Substack, YouTube, I mean all sorts of little pockets and little ways, not huge ways. I'm not a social media icon. But I am the WTF lady, and I am a force to be reckoned with, and I am there just to kinda help people understand that their pivot brings promise, and that their curveball doesn't need to be the end. It's not an obstacle, it's an opportunity. So visit me at unscriptedpivots.com.
Yeah, that's a great way to end it. Yeah, Danielle, thank you so much for being with us today, and thanks to all our listeners for joining us again today. And be sure to follow, like, subscribe, all those things, and we'll see you on the next episode of PPP.
All right.
Right?